Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to do my March wrap-up. So this wrap-up is a bit later than normal because I still had to upload some videos that I was supposed to upload in March, but because I was on vacation and a bit distracted, I didn't get around to posting those videos. So therefore, this video is like a week later than I normally would like to post my wrap-ups, but hopefully you'll still enjoy this wrap-up. This wrap-up is different than my normal wrap-ups because I was on vacation in Japan, which was amazing. I loved it so much. The plan was to film like a vlog of my time in Japan with reading updates throughout, but halfway through my trip I kind of nixed that idea because my trip, it was a bit like the first half I was alone and the second half my brother joined, and when my brother joined I kind of stopped reading, and also I don't know, I just kind of stopped thinking about booktube and stuff like that and just 100% enjoyed my vacation. Not that I wasn't enjoying my vacation when I was alone, but I feel like I just had a bit more time to also think about booktube. So I do have a lot of clips of the books I read in Japan. And since I don't want those clips to go to waste, also I feel like I do enjoy giving you my fresh thoughts. So let me know what you think of this format, because maybe if you really love it, I could change my wrap-ups into just giving you, like into filming them right after finishing books. But then on the other hand, how is that different from vlogs? So I don't know, we'll see. So like I said, this wrap-up will be different in that the books I read in Japan, I will just insert clips of me talking about the books right after finishing them. So I read 10 books this month. 6 of them I read in Japan, or at least I talked about them in Japan. So those will have clips. And I know I normally talk about these books in order of enjoyment. Since I really allowed myself to read what I was in the mood for, and I also binged a couple series, it doesn't really make sense to do it that way. So instead, I'm just going to talk about these books in order of when I read them. That means the first 4 books I finished, I'll just talk about here. And then the last 6 books will be my vlog clips. And then at the end, I'll tell you my favorite book, considering normally, since I talk about them in order of enjoyment, the last book is always the book I enjoyed the most. Considering I'm not talking about them that way, I still want to come back and tell you my favorite book. Let's talk about the stats first. So like I said, I read 10 books in the month of March, which equates to 2,855 pages. I had 2 3-star reads, 2 4-star reads, 3 4.5-star reads, and 3 5-star reads, which means my average rating was a 4.3. I read all romances this month, and 4 of them were dark romances, 2 were contemporary romances, and 4 were sports romances. I read 1 novella and 9 novels. So the first book I read in the month of March was The Wild Man by Alex Grayson. So I actually had like this whole list of books that I was considering reading on vacation. So when the month of March started, I figured let's just look at that list to see which books I would read. Considering I wasn't going to be reading a lot of new releases this month, I already knew that. And I was actually waiting for a new release that I was looking forward to. So I just needed like short, quick reads. So The Wild Man, I wasn't like, it was already on my radar, obviously, but I wasn't really, it wasn't very high up on my priorities list. But for some reason, I was in the mood for a Tarzan retelling, and I was debating between this one and the other one, which is by Emma Hamm, I think. No, I don't think it's Emma Hamm. Love in the Wild. But since I was also kind of in the mood for dark romance, I went for The Wild Man. And this is interesting. It's not for everybody because it is very, very dark. So you follow this girl who is a journalist, and she wants to write a story about this guy who has been lost in the wilderness since he was like 5 years old. She wants to find him and interview him, and she decides that she has this genius idea of doing that by herself. And even though she does know how to survive in the wild because like her father used to take her and her brothers camping a lot. So her father really wants her to take one of her brothers with her to protect her, but she is vehement that she just wants to go alone. So she does, and she ends up finding him, and he ends up taking her. So he takes her, he chains her to his side. He chains her in his like lair. He tells her that she's his, and he ends up raping her. I mean, that's really like, there's no way to, that is what it is. He has been like, he's in his 30s, I believe, but he's been living in the wild since he was 5. No real interactions with any humans. And while she's going through that ordeal, and this is all on page, so you see everything that happened to her. And while she's going through that, she's trying to communicate with him, but he doesn't talk. She's trying to get through to him that he should let her go, but he really doesn't want to. And, you know, you see, so this is basically their story of starting out at that point, and somehow it does turn into a romance. And as fucked up as that is to say, is I really enjoyed this book. I feel like it was pretty realistic in what would happen if you were to look for some sort of wild man that's been living out in the wilderness for 20 plus years. And even though, yes, this main character made some stupid decisions, I feel like that is basically what was needed to start this story. So I kind of accepted that as the premise of like their romance. At the end of the day, I did believe in their romance, even though it started up really messed up. And like, yes, there were some points where I was genuinely debating, okay, how are they gonna have their HEA? Because surely that is just impossible. Also, obviously, she's from like the modern time and he's still living this primitive lifestyle. How are they going to compromise, and what does that look like? And yes, obviously it starts very dark, but I couldn't help but love him in the end. And maybe that says something about me, but I feel like he started off really like just driven by what he wanted. And I feel like at the end of the day, he did learn how to compromise, and I did enjoy his character. And even though what I just described sounds like the opposite of innocent, but he was innocent in a lot of ways. The way he spoke in the beginning just kind of endeared me to him, because the last time he spoke, he was 5 years old, and he kind of has the vocabulary of a 5-year-old. So, like I said, that just endeared me to him a bit. And what I feel like really helped is that we got his point of view sometimes. So most of the point of views were from her, but like every 5 or so chapters, we'd get some of his, and I feel like that did help in humanizing him, especially in the beginning portions of their romance. There are some things that I didn't really love, which is what prevented me from giving it 5 stars. So she kept calling him Wild Man, and especially during sex. And I felt like that was cringe a bit, because she kept doing it even after they were kind of communicating a bit. So I feel like by that point, she could have just asked his name, and just calling him the Wild Man, especially with the in front, just was kind of ridiculous. Also, even though this book wasn't very long, let me see, it was about 317 pages. By the 200-page mark, I did get a bit bored. So I really preferred the first 2/3 of this book, and the last 1/3 I feel like could have been cut down a bit. So overall 4.5, but I would definitely not recommend it to everybody. So definitely check your triggers. And if you really don't want to read anything about non-con, then this is 100% not the book for you. But if you enjoy darker romances and you like a Tarzan retelling, then you might enjoy this book. The next book I read was The Year We Hid Away by Sarina Bowen. So this is the second book in the Ivy Years series. And technically it's a sports romance, but neither of these two play hockey anymore. So I just counted it as a contemporary romance. You follow Bridger and Scarlett. Bridger has a mom who's a drug addict, and he has a little sister. And when the situation at his mom's house becomes so untenable, he decides to take his little sister and move her in with him in his dorms at like Harkness College. Because of that, he has to work a lot, which prevents him from like coming back to hockey. So he's very busy. And then he meets Scarlett. And Scarlett is hiding a lot of secrets because Scarlett is not her real name. Her father was accused, so her father was this very famous hockey player. And she never really had the best relationship with him, but he was accused of assaulting and hurting, like SAing these boys that were going to his hockey camp. And these were boys who were already very it's not, obviously it's bad in any way, but these were already boys that were disenfranchised, and he lured them in by, obviously this being a charity, him being a very famous hockey player and then doing these awful things to these boys, and nobody suspected anything. And now this story has come out, so her father is like has to go through like the legal battle to prove his innocence, even though this man is not innocent. And her mom is standing by her father the whole time, and she wants Scarlett to testify on behalf of her father. And Scarlett is very conflicted. She doesn't want to do it. She just wants to leave their like her parents behind and just start over. So she really doesn't want to testify, but her mother keeps nagging her to do so. So since obviously that's on the paper, she doesn't want to start over with her father's last name, so she ends up changing her last name, or changing her name in general, so to not be associated with everything that happened, like to not be associated with her father. While she's in college, she meets Bridger, and they get very close. And while they get close, she realizes what he's going through, you know, taking care of his little sister. She doesn't want her demons, she doesn't want her past to intrude on Bridger and what he wants to do, because he really wants to adopt his little sister. And having her involved, Scarlett involved with her father, like having the father she has, might complicate that. But these two cannot stay away from each other. They really respect each other. They love each other. And this is going to be that romance. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I cried on the train reading this. That's how much I loved it. I really loved both characters and the side characters. And some of the side characters we've seen in the first book. But I really, really enjoyed Andy, his neighbor. I just love the people that were so willing to help, especially Bridger, with him taking care of his little sister and eventually adopting her. I thought this book had a lot of heart. I didn't give the first book a very high rating, but I'm so glad I continued because this was beautiful in my opinion. I gave the first book 3 stars. And I really, even though I gave the first book 3 stars, I really enjoyed seeing the couple. Oh no, I gave it 2.5 stars. But I really enjoyed seeing the couple from this book in The Year We Hid Away. I was just rooting for these two and their HEA and the good people in this book. So I just had a good time. So that's why I continued on with the novella and I read Blonde Date. And this is very much tied to this book because this is a novella following the roommate of Scarlett and that neighbor of Bridger. You see this date happening in The Year We Hid Away, but we don't really get any details, and this book are those details. And I gave this novella 4.5 stars because even though it was a novella and it was not that serious, obviously, I did enjoy seeing these two, especially Katie, who Scarlett, even though she liked her, she came off as a bit shallow in Scarlett's book. So I did like seeing more of her. And obviously I really loved Andy, so I was rooting for his book. So basically he's a basketball player. He hasn't had the best luck with girls before. He used to be this nerdy guy at school, and he actually went to school with Scarlett. He has had a crush on Katie ever since he first saw her. And Katie has been dating these football players who haven't been treating her the best. So now she needs a date. And Scarlett obviously knows that Andy is a good guy. And even though he's also an athlete, he's not at all anything like the guys that Katie has been dating. So is her name Katie? Yeah. So she ends up setting them up and they have a great time on their date. But it's really that. It's just their date, really. But I had a good time, 4.5 stars. Maybe it was a bit generous, but I did really enjoy it. And the last book I'm going to talk about here, like I said, the other books, I will insert clips of when I actually finish them, is In Her Own League by Liz Tomforde. So this is, for me, the highly anticipated spin-off from the Windy City series. And you follow Reese and Emmett, or Monty. And Monty, of course, is Miller's dad from Caught Up. And Caught Up is one of my favorite books in the Windy City series. And I really loved Monty's relationship with Miller. And you already saw this relationship. You already saw hints of these two in Caught Up. So I was very much looking forward. When she announced it, I was salivating for this book. And I did a non-spoiler reading vlog for this book, which I'll leave linked for you. But I really, really loved this book. I gave it 5 stars. It was very, very good. I really loved... So basically, Monty is the coach to the Windy City Warriors. And, that club, like that baseball club always had like this owner, and he has been like the owner for forever. And in Caught Up, you see him being shadowed by his granddaughter, who's going to be taking over the Windy City Warriors. This book is actually her first year as owner, and she has to make some tough decisions because her grandfather has been kind of checked out for a while. He was ready to retire, and he was just like waiting for her to be ready to take over the reins. And because he's been checked out for a while, he's made some decisions that very much like kind of negatively affected the business. So now she has to kind of reverse that. And because she has to make these difficult decisions, she kind of becomes the bad guy. So she and Monty clash a lot in the beginning because it seems like her decisions, according to him, are heartless. She's choosing the business over the people, in his opinion. And she kind of lets him believe that, when in fact she is not heartless at all. Like, she, obviously, like I said, there's reasons for her decisions, and she doesn't make those decisions lightly. And when she does have to make these difficult decisions, she tries to mitigate the negative consequences as much as she can. So while they're getting closer, because she also ends up traveling with the team on their away games, so while they have to work together, Monty realizes he may have judged her too soon, and then thinks like she's not what she seems. So eventually they do build a friendship, and he does have her back a lot of times. And she's also very attracted to him, but obviously if it's forbidden, considering she's his boss and she's the only female owner in the MLB. So to end up to have a relationship with one of her coaches in her first year as the only female owner, that just doesn't look good. She's already not really respected by the other owners. So there's a lot of things standing in their way, but obviously they're gonna end up together, and I really loved it. It was 5 stars. I loved their relationship together. I loved how Monty had to really face the fact, the way he misjudged her from the very beginning, the way he, his preconceived notions, the way he didn't really give her a chance to prove herself, but also to explain why she's doing what she's doing. And some of that is on Reese, of course, because she doesn't really take the time in the beginning to explain. But I love how when he finally realizes, oh, things are not what they seem, he has her back. And I love how he pursues her. I love their relationship together. And I really love both characters separately. And I already knew I would love both of them, considering what I saw from them in Caught Up and Play Along. And of course, I really loved seeing... So you don't see every character from the Windy City series, considering Monty really doesn't have anything to do with the characters from Mile High or The Right Move or Rewind It Back. It's really... So it's basically like a third book in the Rhodes brothers books, I guess. So those two already felt like a duology, and this one feels very tied to it. Obviously, considering Monty is Miller's dad and Maxie's granddad and Kai's father-in-law. So I just had a great time, and I really loved seeing a lot of the Rhodes brothers and the rest of the team. And I really loved their romance. And I obviously these are older characters, and I did feel like she did a good job with a romance with these older characters. I was rooting for them every step of the way. I just had a good time. I was giggling and kicking my feet. I just loved my time reading this. So if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts, check out my reading vlog. So the rest of the books, like I said, I read in Japan, so I'll just leave all the vlog clips of me reading all these books. If I have anything urgent to say, I will not do that here because I have actually not watched the vlog clips. I'll just pop in while editing the video. So I finished The Penalty Box. I think I started it before, I started it before going on the plane, and then I read a big chunk of it on the plane, and I ended up finishing it when I got to my hotel, I guess. No, I also, so I read a bit while sightseeing, and I ended up finishing it, but okay, so I really want to compare it to the book before it, and the book before it I was actually supposed to read on the plane, but I started it, I guess the day before, and I just inhaled that book and I could not stop reading. So let's talk about the book before it, and then let's just review that book and then talk about The Penalty Box, and then I'm gonna compare the two. I forget what that other book is called. which you'll just see a picture here. I don't remember. So this is the one I heard the best things about. So I knew I wanted to read it. So you follow Zoe and Ryan. They meet when Ryan is at a cafe and he's trying to do his tax. So he's not trying to do his taxes. He needs to import all his receipts so that his accountant can do his taxes for him. But he is a hockey player and he's not at all savvy with the computer. So he keeps messing up. He thinks he deleted all his receipts. So this girl ends up helping him, and because she helps him, she ends up being late to something. So he ends up dropping her off. When they get there, or when he gets there, he sees that she's late to the night shelter for homeless people. So she's homeless, so she really doesn't have any place to stay. So even though she looks very young and he knows that he really shouldn't be helping her, or I mean, not that he shouldn't help her, but at first he's like, okay, let me just give her money so she can stay at a hotel. He ends up giving her his couch for the night, and at first she's very skittish. She's like, what do you want from me? I'm not gonna have sex with you. I'm not gonna give you a blowjob. I'm not gonna do any of that. And he's like, I don't want that. Just sleep here for the night, and then you'll be on your merry way in the morning. And once he's convinced her that he, in fact, oh no, wait, he doesn't give her his couch. He gives her his bed. He tells her, just stay in my room. There's a lock on the door and I'll stay on the couch. Yeah. So that is what ends up convincing her that, okay, so he's not going to do anything. I can lock the door. It's fine. So he ends up giving her food as well. And so she at least has a place to stay for the night. And then she ends up leaving and he thinks, okay, so I'll never see her again. But he cannot really stop thinking about her, wondering, okay, how come this girl's homeless? At first, he's like very judgy. He's like, well, maybe you should get a job. And she's like, I have a job, but I earn $1,300. So they live in Vancouver, of course, so that I can either pay rent or I can buy food. And I choose food, which crazy. I honestly thought, I'm not sure, obviously, but I honestly thought Canada had better social safety nets than that, but I guess not. A couple nights later, Ryan ends up getting called by the hospital because when she left, he ended up giving her his card and he told her, okay, so if you need anything, just call me. And she took the card and she's like, I'm never gonna call this guy. But the hospital ends up calling and they are like, we have this girl who's been severely beaten and she didn't have anything on her except your card. So he ends up going to the hospital and he sees that she, yes, in fact, has been severely beaten. So he really wants to help her because obviously living on the streets as a woman is hard enough. Living on the street while you are in pain, you're just a sitting duck and even worse things are going to happen to you, of course. And once again, he ends up bringing her to his house and just convincing her, let's just stay here until you can get back on your feet and then you can go. So while she's staying there, she constantly feels guilty because he obviously spends money on her. He buys her food, he buys her clothing. So she just keeps like a tally of, okay, so how am I going to pay this guy back? So eventually he tells her, okay, you know what? You're going to get back on your feet. And of course, like, if you want to pay me back, you can, but the only way I'll accept you paying me back is once you're up on your feet, and not just up on your feet, once you're thriving. So that obviously eliminates some pressure for her. She, in her mind, still thinks, okay, so obviously I need to leave at some point, and he keeps delaying it, and he just wants her to stay. And while she's staying there, they do end up developing a friendship, and it's going to turn into a romance. But of course, there's a huge power imbalance there. You literally have somebody who's homeless, who has nothing to her name, and then you have this multi-millionaire hockey player. So especially he needs to really tread carefully. She really doesn't have any experience with guys, so she's pretty innocent. So she's 20, he's 25, but like I said, like when she was 18, like she started living on the street when she was 18, and she managed to keep herself safe. And while they are living there, like this starts out as very much friendship first, and while she's living with him, she gets to know, like she starts like having her own friendship. So he has a agent whose name is Krista, who she's really the star of the show in this series. I know her book is the fourth one. I cannot wait to get to it, but I really love her. And at first she's very weary of this homeless girl. At first she's like, she's gonna take advantage of you, she's gonna steal from you, leave. But once she spends just one day with her, she she becomes her fiercest protector, which obviously I really loved. So he's new to the team, and he isn't really gelling with the rest of the team because apparently in the book before it, which I have not read yet, he injured a player from their team, and now he got traded to this team, but the rest of the team is very weary of him because they think he's just not a good guy since he injured their friend. So throughout this book, he becomes close with with a couple of the hockey players, and they also become close with her. Also, since she ended up helping him with his finances, like with making a Excel sheet for importing his receipts, his accountant just love that. So the rest of the hockey players also end up hiring her to do their receipts because she's very smart. She's just down on her luck. Her parents died, or her mom died when she was very young. So she has been a foster child, and when she was 18, they put her out on the street, really. So she just needed a leg up. So Ryan, since he really wants to help her, he tells his hockey friends yes, but she charges $400 for it. So that is obviously a way for her to make money. I really love this book. I love it so much. I love both characters. I really love Zoe. I love the combination of very innocent, but also she's very street smart, which Ryan clocks that too, that juxtaposition of her, really, because obviously she's lived out on the street, but as far as guys are concerned, intimacy, stuff like that, she has no experience. So some of the things that come out of her mouth are just hilarious. I also really love her personality. So she really loves IKEA. So at one point he's like, okay, I want to decorate the guest room, and he kind of wants to trick her to decorate her own room, and at first she doesn't realize that it's for her. So he's thinking, okay, let's just go to some high-end furniture store. So he asks her, okay, so where do you want to go, or where do you think we should go for furniture? And she's like, IKEA, it's the best. So at first he's like, no, we're not gonna go to IKEA, because of course he's a famous hockey player in this hockey town, so he knows there's gonna be a mob, and also he knows he can afford more than IKEA, but to her IKEA is this paradise. So I did love that. That was so adorable to me. But of course, throughout this whole book, Ryan needs to tread carefully, because when she first got there, they made a promise to each other that he wasn't going to ask anything of her. It was not going to because in her world, the only way people helped you is if you gave them something in return. And he, when she first got there, he promised her, I will never ask sex from you. I will never do that to you. So of course, once real friendship develops and real feelings develop, that is going to be an issue. And he also knows, at the end of the day, he just doesn't want to take advantage of her, which is a problem considering her other alternative is living out on the street. So I guess I liked seeing, I was genuinely unsure how we were going to get to an HEA. So I really love this. I really love the side characters too. I think she did such a fantastic job with the side characters. And I also really loved Ryan. He's the definition of a good guy. He just wants to do the right thing. Yeah, I really love this book. I gave it 5 stars. It was the easiest 5 stars I've ever given. It was so, it was beautiful to me. I flew through this book. The writing style was so easy to fly through. And I really ended up enjoying their romance. There was a third act breakup in here that I understood completely why that had to happen, why the decisions were made, but I love them so much. It was so beautiful. Let me check my notes, but it's on my phone, see if I have any other thoughts to give you. Then I'll talk about the third book. Okay, so the only thing that kind of bothered me about Ryan was towards the end, especially towards the third act conflict, he really needed to work on his communication skills. I just wanted him to explain stuff a bit better for her. But that's the only minute thing that kind of bothered me. Also, to be even though I really loved Ryan, I loved him, he was amazing, Zoe was really the star of the show. I was rooting for her every step of the way, even though yes, this is a romance, both of them have stuff to work through, both of them have their own issues, but really it was the heart of this book was really her going from homeless to thriving. Yes, of course Ryan had a lot to do with it. She needed to have that leg up, like she needed that helping hand. But once she got that, like she has enough smarts and she's capable enough to succeed on her own. So I really genuinely love this book. So moving on to the third book in this series, which is the second book I read in this series, which is The Penalty Box. So this book you follow Mika, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's Russian. I don't think it's Micah. But anyway, we saw him a lot in the second book because he's like one of the only, he's one of the only hockey players who is willing to become friends with Ryan. So and he becomes very good friends with Zoe as well. So we see a lot of him in that second book, and he's kind of like goofy, funny type character. That book, like there's a cliffhanger for this book basically. So the first book ends like an epilogue. It ends with Mika calling Ryan, I did something bad, please help me. So this book starts with that scene really. Mika's from Russia. His best friend, like the guy he grew up with, he's like the head of the Russian mafia in Vancouver, I guess. So which Mika really has anything to do. He doesn't have anything to do that really. So, but he, like, every once in a while they hang out, because they don't hang out a lot because his friend's trying to protect him from like scrutiny really, since he's obviously a famous hockey player. But when he's there, the place ends up getting raided, and since he's like the easiest prey, since he has like the most to lose, the police end up focusing on him. So they are pretty hard on him. They want him to spy on his friend for the police. Like they want to turn him into an informant, which he will never do that to his friend. Because he got arrested, and since he's like this like partier bad boy type figure, his hockey team is seriously considering trading him, and he doesn't want to leave. So his agent ends up concocting the story that he is engaged to be married and that he will be married. So this is a marriage of convenience, which of course I love. Marriages of convenience are some of my favorite tropes, because it combines two of my favorite tropes, fake dating and roommates to lovers. So it's just perfect. At first she's like, okay, so I have a list of names, let's try and pick one. But her assistant, who's pretty antagonistic towards Micah, like she really doesn't want anything to do with him. Whenever he's there, she doesn't really give him the time of day. She is pretty snarky towards him. She doesn't take his shit. He's like a very charming guy, but she kind of spars with him a lot. They banter back and forth, and she seems to not be that amused or that affected by his charm, when in fact what he doesn't know is that she has been crushing on him hard, which is why she kind of keeps her distance. So Krista wants to find somebody that is willing to marry him for a year, and then after that year, and once his contract gets renewed, that person will get paid $100,000. So Charlie, who's the assistant, she thinks, oh my god, I need that money. So she like offhandedly makes a joke like, for that money I'd marry him. So Krista ends up convincing both of them that they should get married. Mika really doesn't want to get married because of something that happened in his childhood. He is vehemently against marriage, so the last thing he wants to do is get married. Eventually he really doesn't see any other way really. Like if he wants to stay in Vancouver, he needs to get married. So eventually he does agree, and Charlie, her brother, got in debt with the mafia, not the Russian mafia connected to Mika, but another mafia, and he ended up in prison. And Charlie, since she wants to, even though her brother is an asshole really, she wants to protect him. She doesn't want anything bad to happen to him in prison, which she knows, like, that mafia is threatening her brother. Like, if she doesn't pay his debt, then they'll hurt him in prison. So she, for the last couple of years, she has been paying his debt for him. The way she does that is by working two full-time jobs. Like, she works for Chris obviously, but she also works in a bar, and she can't seem to be keeping up. So she, like, that money could really help her. They do end up married, but like from the beginning it's clear Mika's like, okay, like the whole point was like the reason they chose her is because they thought that she would never fall in love with him really, and like he doesn't, like this will never be an actual marriage. She goes into that into the marriage knowing I should avoid having feelings for him at all costs. But of course, like any other good marriage of convenience book, they do end up falling in love. There is somebody that seems to be threatening her behind the scenes, like somebody seems to be stalking her and messing with her behind the scenes. And those things seem to happen whenever Mika is not home for away games. So there's like there's a suspense element in this book as well. Okay, so I ended up giving this book 4 stars because like there were parts of it that I really, really loved. And then there were parts of it that really bothered me. But the parts that I loved so much that I couldn't really give it anything lower than a 4 stars. So okay, so what I really loved whenever they were good together, they were very good. Like I liked a lot about this book. Like I loved their chemistry together. I loved their friendship. I loved their sex scenes together. And I loved like at one point they create like a found family, especially like there's a couple scenes during the holidays where his mom visits, even though he really has issues with his mom. She ends up visiting him, her best friend ends up visiting with his partner, and like that found family aspect of those scenes I really, really, really loved. I think Odette does a very good job with side characters in this book. Krista played a big part in this book and I loved every scene with her. We saw a lot of Zoe as well, and I also really enjoyed those scenes. And I also enjoyed all the scenes between Mika and his childhood best friend. So those things I really enjoyed. And of course, it's a marriage of convenience. I love that. Okay, I do. I enjoyed it very much. Also, she really loves dogs. So I loved pretty much all the dog scenes in this book as well. So at one point, he really wants, like he is going out of his mind trying to think of ways to protect her. So he ends up paying $70,000 for like a guard dog, and I loved that guard dog. He was very cute and adorable. Okay, so my problems with this book really were, okay, so this was an unbalanced relationship, which I just described to you the premise of the book before it, which that is like the definition of an unbalanced relationship, right? Okay, so that is literally a homeless person with a millionaire. But to me, this book felt more unbalanced than that one, and specifically the way, like the reason it was unbalanced was more in like the emotional, like in their relationship itself. Because in the second book, in Home Game, is it called Home Game? Anyway, it doesn't matter. In the second book, even though yes, on paper, it's obviously unbalanced. Like I said, I don't need to belabor the point. It is unbalanced because one of them has no money and one of them has a lot of money. But since Ryan, from the beginning, he keeps Zoe in mind in almost every decision he makes. So because of that, it takes them such a long time to have a physical relationship, because he does everything in his power to make sure that he keeps her best interests in mind. Whereas in this book, everything is on Mika's terms, which that bothered me, because Charlie was portrayed in the beginning that she wouldn't take his shit. She had strong beliefs and opinions, and she was going to stick to that. We only saw that part of her in the first couple of chapters. Once they're married, once she's actually living in his house, that Charlie disappeared, and the Charlie we got was somebody who constantly capitulated to Mika's needs, who constantly did whatever he wanted to do. Like the whole progression of that relationship was him deciding, it was never her. Anytime he did something bad, she forgave him like that. And she constantly saw it from his point of view, which, yes, obviously you want that in a partner, but at one point you need to set some clear rules and you need to say, okay, sorry, I'm not gonna accept this. And she never did that. So that the relationship kept being unbalanced. And as much as I love Mika, I knew like he's obviously a good guy. At the end of the day, he does want to help her. And yes, technically she also doesn't have a lot of money. And also there's obviously a big difference between them because she has experiences with other men and Zoe didn't. So that was an added extra layer to the second book. Yeah, so that whole part annoyed me. Like whenever he wanted to have sex, she instantly gave him that. The whole third act conflict, which I don't want to get into that also, everything was on his terms, and she never made him grovel. At least in the second book, he ended up groveling in that book to try and win her back. In the third book, even though what Mika did was not in the best interest of Charlie, and I get why he did that. Obviously he has a very big trauma in his past. I understand why he did all that. That doesn't mean he doesn't need to grovel though, because he hurt her and it wasn't for her best interest. At least in the second book, what like Ryan's decisions were for the best interest of his significant other, which that wasn't the case in the third book. So that really bothered me. Like the whole third act breakup bothered me, and it wasn't the fact that it happened, because I understood why it happened, but I don't mind if one of the characters does something bad, as long as there's a type of grovel, which that wasn't the case in this book. Also, I told you about the whole romantic suspense aspect of it. It was like nothing surprised me at all. Like I knew very early on what would happen, like who the bad guy was and how that all would go, and I ended up being right. Like there was one tiny thing about it that I didn't guess that turned out to be the case, but other than that, it was clear to me who the person was that was carrying her. So that also kind of soured me a bit. I felt like, and I'm not a writer obviously, but I felt like Odette kind of made it too obvious who it was. I felt like she could have done some, like a couple different things for it to not be as obvious. So yeah, I don't know if it made any sense. I feel like if you've read this book, then you know exactly my issues with this book. But like I said, even though those things really bothered me, if it wasn't for the fact that I really loved all the things I loved about it, then this would have been a 3-star or lower. And it wasn't, because at the end of the day, I did fly through it. I did enjoy them when they were good, and all the other things I loved, I still really loved. So 4 stars, but I can definitely see why Home Game was the one that a lot of people kept recommending, because that is probably also going to be the book that I'll keep recommending. Also, I do have to say, I did forget to mention, but the guy on the cover of the penalty box is so fucking hot. That is exactly who I pictured Mika to look like. Look at him. Okay, I can't look at your face. You're gorgeous. He's so pretty. Oh my god. Anyway, I couldn't let you go without saying that. So yes, I do want to finish this series. I still need to read the first book and the fourth one, but I don't think I'm going to do that on this trip. One thing I did really love, which I forgot to mention in things I loved, this guy is deliciously possessive and jealous. So she has this neighbor who like is starting to get close to her. He has 2 dogs and she really loves dogs, and this is before she gets her own guard dog. So she ends up walking his dogs with him, and seeing Mika so fucking jealous when in the beginning, like this is still in the part where it's still clear that he has no interest in a serious relationship. It's still like it's clear that this is just temporary, yet anytime this Andrew character was talking to her, he would get so jealous, and I loved seeing that. Also, I did love how so even though it was only temporary, he did make it clear like very early on that while they were together, he was going to treat it as a real marriage. So he did use the word mine a couple times that I really enjoyed. I thought she did a good job with that part, so I did enjoy that. So yeah, lots of things to love about this book, really. And like I'm not mad that I read it at all. It's still 4 stars. Like I was like for a long time it was gonna be 4.5 actually, but I think the whole reveal of I think the whole third act and the way that was handled, I feel like if the whole third act thing was handled a bit better, or if he had at least groveled a bit, this would have been either 4.5 or maybe even 5 stars. But yeah. Okay, so I finished Never Sweeter. I don't know if I talked to you about this book already, but anyway, I started and finished Never Sweeter yesterday. Actually, it was an interesting book for me. So let me tell you the premise first. So you follow Letty, which her best friend is called Lydia, and I was getting them confused the whole time. But anyway, Letty, the book starts off with a prologue 2 years before. In the prologue, she's been bullied, and she claims that the worst of them is a guy named Tate. In the prologue, she comes across them in the evening while she's walking and they're driving, and Tate's friend is the one who's driving, and they end up driving her off a cliff, which ends up almost killing her. That is how this book starts, and Tate is going to be the love interest. So 2 years later, she sees him again in college. It took her 2 years to get back to what she used to be before the accident. I know the Dutch word. What is the English word? Rehab. So now she's in college, and she thinks that she's left that life behind, but of course she's fat. So she was bullied because, like, about her being fat. So she's very insecure. She doesn't have real friends, and like the one friend she makes in this book, like it takes her a while for her to really trust her because she's never really had a proper friend before. In her first week, she comes across Tate and she freaks the fuck out. And he ends up telling her, okay, well, I'm gonna just stay away from you then. Later that week, they see each other again, and she finds out that he's been taking the class that he was supposed to take from like a hallway or something. So they come to an understanding, like if he just doesn't speak to her, then if they have the same class, then so be it. But then they get paired up together for this sex in movies class, which of course that is what it would be. So this book is pretty erotic, which I didn't realize. It wasn't until I looked on Goodreads, and yes, erotica is definitely one of the subgenres. So they end up doing this project together. At first, she is vehemently against it. She doesn't want to do it, but he ends up convincing her, and eventually they do the project together. And while they're doing the project together, they obviously talk about sex, and he learns some things about her, she learns some things about him. And like while they are hanging out, he tells her that like his reasonings for bullying her, which it wasn't like he didn't even give a good reason, in my opinion.
What was the reason? I just explained the reason. What was the reason, bitch?
So the thing with this book is I was really enjoying it the first half, because I knew what this book was. I knew going in that this was a book about a girl who's gonna fall in love with her bully. So I already bought into that premise. I just didn't know how unhinged the bullying was. Like if you I'm fine. Like if you jump the shark, I'm fine. I'm right there with you. Okay, we're over the shark, but then you need to make the payoff just as big. Like you need to make the groveling, which there was no groveling in this book, I might add. Okay, so I can get on board with a MMC or like a love interest doing horrible shit, but the redemption arc needs to be just as grand. And I feel like there was not a balance there. Like I feel like I could have gotten a bit more on board had he not almost killed her. I feel like, okay, if it had just been the bullying without her driving, like actually hitting her with their car, I feel like everything that happened in this book I could have gotten on board with. But because she almost died because of him and his friends, I feel like there wasn't enough done, in my opinion, for her to end up trusting him within a month, because that is how long it took. Like after a month, maybe even less than that, but at one point they do say a month, they are already intimate. So you mean to tell me 4 years this guy has been bullying you, telling you and the rest of your school that you're horrendous, horrible, ugly, all the bad things you could be. Because of that, you still have very low self-esteem, specifically because of the words that he used to describe you. He also drove you off a cliff, or at least he was present while that happened, and he never faced consequences for that. Yet that is all forgiven within a month. I could not get on board. And his reasoning, it's not really a spoiler, but like the only thing he said about it was that I didn't really mean it. Okay, so that is supposed to make it all okay. So like I said, the first half I liked it because it was just hot by that point. I still was not on board with his reasonings, but I mean, I was thinking, okay, so maybe, I don't know, I was kind of hoping that there would be like another conversation about it or something, or if we had, I don't know, if we had found out some other things like from back then that maybe Letty wasn't privy to at that moment. But to me, it was something similar, like something like that happened, but it wasn't convincing enough for me. And then the second half, there was this convoluted plot with a mobster involved, and I was like, what are we doing here? Because this is not a long book. My edition has 295 pages, And a lot of those pages were taken up by things that were irrelevant to their romance, specifically, in my opinion. When I think she should have spent those pages slowly building that romance, because that's the thing. Like, the first, I feel like the romance went too quickly. Like, I feel like with the amount of actual time in the book, but also the pages in the book, I feel like she should have spent at least 200 pages of them us getting to see her slowly but surely trust him. And yes, they can still have sex or do intimate things and watch those sexy movies together, but I don't feel like she should have trusted him before those 200 pages. I don't feel like they should have had sex before those 200 pages. Like, maybe they could have done other things, I don't know. But I do have to tell you, this book had one of the hottest sex scenes I think I've ever read. It was like their first like intimate scene. That was so hot. Oh my god, that was so fucking hot. Also, there was a thing about this writing style that I can't really put my finger on why it bothers me, but it did. Every time she was talking to another girl, I was lost as to who was actually speaking. I feel like the author didn't do a good job differentiating that. And I don't know. So I looked up some Goodreads reviews because I wanted somebody to explain to me what was up with this writing that bothered me. And I saw one review that summed it up a bit, but it seemed like she also couldn't really understand, really put the finger on it. So I don't know if I 100% agree with her assessment, but I feel like it comes closest to what I felt like. So she describes it as being like dreamlike, which I guess, yeah, I guess I can see that. Maybe that is what bothered me, and maybe it's just that the author just didn't convince me that these two should be together, because I don't think they should be. I feel like he, especially since he was the reason that she had all these body issues, I feel like he especially should have spent more time talking about her body and how beautiful he finds it, and how he was just a dumb 16-year-old when he said all those things. And I just remembered, you know what also really bothered me? So he has a giant dick that is very intimidating to girls, and that is something that he's insecure about. And I feel like this book spent more time on his insecurity with his dick than with her insecurity about her body, which is unfair because she never made him insecure about his dick, yet he did make her insecure about her body. So in this book, when we're talking about this girl who falls in love with her bully, I needed a scene of him like meticulously going through every body part and telling her what he loved about said body part. Okay, so if you hadn't gathered from this book, like from my explanations, obviously this has big triggers with body weight. She's very harsh. She talks very harshly about her body too, and it's never really properly addressed, in my opinion. It just like it's there in the ether. Anyway, so I gave it 3 stars. Like I said, the first half was 4 stars for me, and the second half was 2 stars. So I ended up settling for a 3 star. It probably should be a bit lower, but like I said, like when I enjoyed this book, I was really enjoying it. I did start my next book that I'm really enjoying. Let me grab my Kindle. Okay, so I wanted to read This Is How You Lose the Time more, but I still, and I don't know if it's the jet lag. I don't feel like I have a jet lag. I don't know. So before I went on my vacation, I was struggling with my mental health, which affected especially my concentration, my sleep, but also my appetite. And I find myself struggling with those same things here again. It could be jet lag, although I don't have trouble sleeping. Like, in fact, I have the opposite of trouble sleeping. I just want to sleep all day. So I don't know. Is that jet lag? So I went from Europe to Asia, so maybe. And so far, most of the books I've read are not that difficult of reads. Like, the writing style is pretty straightforward, but This Is How You Lose the Time more. I've only read the first chapter. I don't think I've even finished the first chapter, but while I can definitely tell you that it's a beautiful writing style, I can also tell you that it does not compute in my brain at the moment. Like, I needed to reread sentences. I just couldn't really understand what was happening. It wasn't really computing in my brain, so I just put it down for now. I do want to read it, very much so, but I started reading Hidden Truths by Neva Altaj, which is the third book in the Perfectly Imperfect series. So I've only read the second book in this series because I've heard from a lot of people that the second book was better than the first. Not a lot of people really loved the first. So I was debating, do I want to read the first book now or continue on with the series? So I went and looked up my review for Broken Whispers, the second book, and I read that in a vlog. And I did say in that vlog, even though I read this book like 2 years ago, I think, I did say in that vlog that I was really excited to read the third book. Because of that review, I did decide to read the third book, and I am glad because the inciting incident of the main character's meeting actually happened in book 2. So anyway, I'm on page 59, which is 25% of the way through. These books are not long at all. This one is 250 pages. And this is another, I don't know if they're all Bratva. I don't think so, but this one is, just like the one before. You follow Sergei and Angelina. And in the second book, I do remember like he was like unhinged. He was in the military in like a special operations unit that kind of broke him. It broke something inside of him. So he can become very volatile at a drop of a hat. Angelina is part of the, I don't know, one of the Mexican cartels, I think. And her father's business partner killed her father, and now he wants to marry her. Okay, so that business partner wants to deliver a sex trafficking victim that he trafficked to the US. So her grandma ends up putting her on that truck instead. So when Sergei and Mikhail intercept that transport, they find her. Sergei immediately becomes obsessed with her. And he does know who she is because he, in the past, the Bratva have wanted to do business with her father and he turned them down. But because they do research on who they want to do business with, he already knew that, like, his daughter and what she looks like and everything about her. But when he first gets her, she tells him that she's like one of those sex trafficking victims. He lives in a house with his previous, like with his commander from the army, and I already love their dynamic together. You actually start this book off with that officer talking to his commanding officer saying, you need to get this kid, because he was 14 when he first started in this special ops unit, and like throughout the years, it starts 15 years ago, and then there's a email 11 years ago, and then 8 years ago, and every email just gets worse. And Felix, which is his commanding officer, gets even like more and more worried because of the things that Sergei is doing in the army and the effect it has on him. So they actually live together now, and Sergei wanted him to leave, but he ended up staying. So now he like calls him his butler. I do like their dynamic together. Sergei has a dog who's a protection dog who is fierce but very, very loyal. And she only listens, I think the dog's name is Mimi. I cannot imagine that that's not a girl. She only listens to Sergei. So far I'm enjoying it. Like I said, I'm not that far in, although technically I am, but I've only read, if not even read 60 pages yet. He already has a nickname for her in a foreign language, which of course I love that. That is one of my favorite things in books. Whenever there's a character from a different country, or at least who speaks a different language, and then they have a nickname in that language. So he calls her Lisichka, Little Fox. And he also calls her My Little Liar, which I don't know why. I also love them. So yeah, I'm just enjoying it. She kind of wants to escape because she wants to make sure that her grandma doesn't get punished for her being gone. Sergei knows that she's lying about stuff, and he tells her, I'll let you go if you tell me the truth, which obviously she's unwilling to do. Which, oh yeah, I think, okay, so I believe that the Russians still think her dad is alive, and she thinks that if she tells him the truth, that her father's killer wants her, then she thinks that they will just send her back because they want to do business with him. So yeah, but obviously that's not gonna happen. Okay, she's his little Lisichka. Okay, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly at all. But yeah, I'm just gonna continue reading. All right, so here I am. I arrived late last night, so I was fucking tired. So I didn't update you about my book, which I don't remember. I think I finished it yesterday. I think so. Because I just finished another book. Apparently the only thing I do is read on vacation. No, but since I'm here alone for now, my brother actually arrives in like a couple days. So during my meals or whenever I sit down for like coffee or matcha is when I read. So, or whenever I have to wait in line. Whereas when my brother shows up, I do think that we'll talk to each other instead. Anyway, so I finished Hidden Truths and I loved it. Although okay, so on Goodreads, I gave it a 4, yet I'm still undecided if I want to give it a 4 or 4.5. I'll have to think on that. Okay, editing Aya, you tell me what the rating is, because I'm still debating between a 4 and a 4.5. So, and I also don't remember if I told you what this story is actually about. I'm so professional. Technically, it's Kept or Captive, but really, she is being treated like a guest of sorts. Like the only thing is she cannot actually leave. But other than that, he gave her his bedroom. He's not sleeping in it. Eventually, once he starts trusting her a bit, she does get like free reign over the house. He even lets her keep knives in her bedroom. He has a dog that is like on the one hand, a sweet little baby that just needs cuddles, but also a fierce, protective guard dog that will kill anybody that so much as looks at Angelina the wrong way. So Sergei, we've seen, like, he's been around in the first 2 books, although I've not read, like, by the time I had read this book, I had not read book 1 yet. Spoiler alert, now I have read it. So you've seen Sergei around. Okay, so he used to be in this like special ops unit that used to, like, was a super secretive unit that would take in lost teenagers, like teenagers that nobody would miss really, and train them to be like a killing machine. Sergei was one of them, and that broke him. He acts very irrationally or very like exaggerated sometimes. Like, for example, whenever he sees something as being wrong, like a normal person would either call the cops or they would, I don't know, kick somebody's ass but keep them alive, and he instead will gut them, take out their organs, and then continue on his merry way. So like he will do that like in a snap. Angelina seems to be the only one who treats him like a normal human being. She doesn't flinch away, she doesn't look away whenever he's looking at her. She's not like on her tiptoes thinking, when is he gonna combust? They both find each other attractive, but he for sure falls for her because she doesn't treat him like everybody else. And for some reason, obviously this is not based in psychology or whatever, but she seems to find a way to calm him down whenever he gets in these states. So sometimes he will just zone out and be completely somewhere else, like he disassociates, seems like he's having flashbacks. It's obvious this guy has PTSD. So normally whenever he's in a state like that, whenever somebody touches him or like tries to talk to him, he will be very aggressive with them. But when Angelina does it, she seems to have the opposite effect on him. He calms down because of it. And, you know, this is that romance. I really enjoyed it, like I said. So it's either a 4 or 4.5. By now you will already know my rating. I really like both characters. I loved Sergei. He just is so hot in my mind. So I don't know if anybody else knows this show, but I used to be such a big fan of Dark Angel. So it had Jessica Alba in it and that guy from NCIS. And also in season 2, Jensen Ackles from Supernatural, a very young Jensen Ackles. And that was such a good show. And it reminded me of that. In that show, they would, like, it's similar to what happened to Eleven in Stranger Things, where they would have these women give birth. Well, in Dark Angel, they kind of messed with the DNA of the children. Like, they would mix like animal DNA with theirs, so that they would have the strength of whatever animal they inserted in them when they were still in the womb. It's a show about these kids in the army, so that reminded me a bit of that. And also I really enjoyed this book. I thought they were hot together. I liked, like, even though obviously I'm a psychologist, obviously it doesn't work this way, but I do like the fact that she seemed to be the only person who seemed to be able to calm him down. I like how she didn't treat him like everybody else. And with these books, so they're, at least where I'm at now in the first couple books, they're very short. Like, they're 250 pages max. So by the 100-page mark in every single book, they for sure have had sex by this point, and like at the 150-page mark, they have professed their love for each other. So that's why I think that is the reason why I haven't given any of these books 5 stars yet, because I do have to suspend my disbelief. Like, I don't 100% believe it when they say that they love each other, but it was just a good old time. Okay, I had a great time. I flew through it. It's such an easy writing style. It took me no time to finish, really. And I really like, so the books I've read so far, they all involve at least one Russian character, and I like that, okay? I think it's my heated rivalry thing, okay? Whenever they have like these nicknames in Russian, I just melt. And I like their dynamic together. I like Roman as a pecan and his men around him, and seeing his men also fall in love. I do enjoy that. So yeah, I'm sure there is a Ilya being a Russian mafia guy fan fiction out there. Maybe I should read that. Although I tend to not love reading fan fiction about established couples. I barely read fan fiction, but when I do, it's about couples that don't exist, but I want to be together. But yeah, I enjoyed it. There's not much to say considering it's such a short book, and if I say anything else, I will spoil it. I really loved it. So, great book. I would highly recommend it. And then, of course, because I liked it so much, I continued on. I went back to book 1 because for some reason, and I don't remember who, but I believe multiple people said it, that if you want to read this series, you should start with book 2 because book 2 is so much better than book 1, is what I heard from people. I don't know if I agree. But anyway, so because I was a good girl, I decided to listen to them. And I did start with book 2. And then obviously book 2 made me so excited about book 3. But book 3 really made me interested in Roman's book, in the first book. So I decided on my Shinkansen ride, I think I started it on the train, yes. To start Painted Scars, which is the first book in this series. And you follow Roman and Nina. And this is a forced marriage, which I love marriage of conveniences, forced marriages. I am a sucker for that shit, because in those books, there will be multiple scenes of my wife, and I go feral for those scenes. So this book had them in like spades, in leagues. Like, it was just great, okay? So Roman is obviously the pecan of the Russian mafia, and the guy they used to handle their real estate stole money from them, $3 million worth, and he like was gonna borrow it to invest, but it turned out to be some sort of scheme, and he lost all that money. So obviously he's dead. He's a dead man walking. But Roman's right-hand man, okay, so Roman, so this is the Perfectly Imperfect series, right? So usually every MMC and sometimes the FMC, they all have something about them, whether it's something physical or mental. And with Roman, 6 months ago, I think, 6 or 3 months ago, let me actually check for you. My back is hurting me, God. 3 months ago, there was a bomb placed in his car. And when that went off, his knee got all fucked up. So now he's a wheelchair user, but he slowly, with physical therapy, is able to use crutches sometimes, and he'll never be able to fully like walk on his own 2 feet. He'll always need some sort of walking aid, whether that be like crutches or a cane, because, you know, as like the pecan, you need to be like strong and outwardly strong, I guess. His right-hand man tells him, you need to get married which this was like, sometimes books do this where like, okay, so that was purely for romance reasons. This felt to me purely for romance reasons. But anyway, I didn't care because I was set. Okay, I was set. He tells him, okay, so you need to get married so that you'll, since... How do I explain it? See, I cannot even explain it. That's how dumb this reasoning was. Well, I mean, technically it's not that dumb, but okay. So his second in command tells him, you need to put up like the facade to your men that you're married. Like you have to get married. And then obviously once you're married, that will produce an heir. And so that your line will continue and you'll have like a strong family unit, I guess. Anyway, I didn't care what the reasoning was, but... To me, okay, so he cannot walk. In the portion where he has to get married, he still uses his wheelchair. Okay, so, and then he's married. That doesn't change the facts of the matter. Anyway, moving on, it doesn't matter. His right-hand man's daughter went to school with the daughter of the guy, like the real estate guy. And apparently... his daughter is a fantastic actress. Like, she can mimic somebody to a T. So he shows him this video of her, like, mimicking, like, two different people. And, like, she changes everything. Like, she changes her, like, her whole face seems to change. Like, a Class A actress, really. So he thinks, okay, so she's perfect then. So she can pretend to be in love with me and to be my wife. And it's going to be great. So he ends up blackmailing her dad and her to do this. She obviously doesn't want to do it, but she also doesn't want her dad to die. So she agrees. He comes up with this whole scheme of, you're going to come to this party. That is where I'll meet you for the first time. Then we'll spend 2 nights in my bed without ever leaving my bedroom. But instead of actually having sex, I will be working and you'll be whatever the fuck you're going to be doing. It's fine. And then we'll get married. And because I'm so infatuated with you and people saw us together and my staff saw us never leave our room, it will be a believable story. So once again, she goes along with that. While they're living together, obviously he cannot hide stuff from her that he hides from the rest of the people in his life. So everybody apart from 2 people in his mafia organization knows he doesn't need his wheelchair all the time. And she ends up being one of the people who knows because they're living together. She confides in him that something happened to her in her past that makes her afraid, like to the point of having panic attacks whenever a large man is in her presence. When she met him for the first time, he was in a wheelchair, so she didn't know how big he was. But once he starts using his crutches, she freaks out because he's very tall and she's very teeny tiny. Through their like fake marriage, they end up falling in love. I really enjoyed this book. Okay, I honestly don't know why people say that you cannot, like, you shouldn't start with this one, because in my opinion, okay, so the second book I read like almost 2 years ago. So I have to confess, I don't remember a whole lot about it. I think I gave it 4 stars. I think I did enjoy it. But this book I loved. Okay, I love Nina. Nina was so unhinged and I love that about her. I love how she was so entertaining to read about. And I could 100% understand why Roman fell in love with her, because everything he loved about her, I loved about her too. Like I was so charmed by her. I thought she was hilarious. I love how she just went with the flow. And I also loved her strong moral compass, even though, yes, technically she's with a mafia don. Obviously he's a criminal, but you know, especially towards the end, like there were lines that she didn't want to cross and she didn't want Roman to cross them for her. I love how jealous he was whenever, like, I don't know, like in the third book, Sergei was also jealous and I did find it charming. But I think he went a bit overboard, whereas I feel like Roman was like the right amount of jealous, and I did enjoy it. I love these heroes are all so like possessive and obsessive, and it was just like hot. Although I do have to say the first book is the least sexy out of all of them, because she barely spends any time with the sex scenes, really. Like whenever there's very few of them, and whenever there is one, it's like very short. It's like 1 paragraph. So I do feel like, because obviously I read the third book and then I went back to the first book, whereas in the third book the sex scenes were longer and more in detail. So I do feel like she just needed to find her groove, and I did start book 4. I need to really start another book. but I cannot seem to stop. And that's okay. Okay. I started the 4th one and we're leaving the Russians. We're going to the Italians now, which that's fine. I digress so far. What was I even talking about? Oh yeah, the sex scene. So I do feel like probably the 4th book will be more along the lines of the 3rd book than the 1st book. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Once again, okay, so which one did I think I have recency bias, but I really enjoyed this book. I did. So I think I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. I guess editing Aya will tell me if this book was memorable or not. And if it wasn't that memorable, it will be a 4. But so far, I'm fine with a 4.5. I did enjoy it. I do think you can start with this one. But really, you can start with any of the first 3 books, really. I mean, obviously, it will spoil who they end up together. But I mean, the author does it herself because every book starts off with like a list of all the books, the couples, and the tropes. So, oh yeah, one thing I didn't forget to say. Okay, so I'm obsessed with Vampire Diaries and I recently started watching it again. And so her name is Nina. His name is Roman Petrov. And whenever and I did know this in the back of my mind, whenever a guy gets married to a woman, she will take on his last name with an A in the end. So her name is Nina Petrova, okay? Katarina Petrova. Oh my God, I love that. I do. I love it so much. Anyway, unhinged behavior right here. So yeah, I did read a lot. Just started Ruined Secrets, which is also like 250 pages or so. It's a bit longer, 270. So I cannot tell you a whole lot about it because I'm only on page 11. But so far, this is an amnesia romance. And also it seems like a pining heroine romance, which I love those. I eat those up. They're like my catnip. I love it. But there's like a giant age gap, it seems. Like it seems like he was either an older teenager or an adult while she was still a child. So I'll have to see how I feel about that. So I finished Ruined Secrets by Neva Altaj, and this is the 4th book in the Perfectly Imperfect series. So I binged a couple of these books back to back. I read 3 of them back to back, and I think I'm going to take a break. This book, we are leaving the Russians, and this is solely like the Italian mafia. So you follow, I forget their names. Well, Luca and Isabella. And, oh, I think I told you. So she has been crushing on him ever since he saved her when she was 6 years old. Okay. And he was 22 at the time, if my math is correct. So she's 19 now and he's 35. So that is a 16-year age gap. Yeah. So when she was 6, yeah, he was 22. I'm gonna get to that, don't worry. Obviously there was hero worship there, but as she got older, she like became more and more attracted to him. She has been pining for him for years, and even though as a child he's been married, not the whole time, but through some of that time. Okay, so basically this book is sold in 2 parts. So the first part, he finds out that his wife is cheating on him with her bodyguard, so he ends up shooting the bodyguard and divorcing his wife. And the Don of the Mafia, who is Isabella's grandfather, orders him to marry his granddaughter because he wants him to take over. The Don is sick. He had recently had a heart attack and he just doesn't have very long to live anymore. Or at least like he wants to have a successor before things get too bad. And he thinks since Luca is not related to him, that him marrying his granddaughter will convince the other capos to back him, even though he really doesn't want to because he's 35. He really doesn't want to be with a teenager, even though he is attracted to her. He just doesn't want to do it. And also the ink has not even been dry on his divorce papers before he marries Isabella. So when she moves in with him, he's very cold to her. He has no interest in kissing her, let alone sleeping with her. So in the first part, she methodically tries to convince him that them sleeping together is a fantastic idea. So she's like doing lots of stuff to mess with his head, really. And in the first part, she's very strong-willed, and I did enjoy her in the first part. And then at the end of the first part, he gets into a car accident that is caused by somebody else. Because of this accident, he ends up losing his memories. I don't know. Listen, I don't really know a lot about amnesia, but like he seems to, like he knows basic things. Like it's not like he forgot how to read or write or like basic facts, but he doesn't seem to know any like personal relationships. So he doesn't even remember his daughter. He doesn't remember his wife. At first, he doesn't even know his own name. Like he knows nothing, which of course is a problem because he recently became the Don. And of course, in the mafia, him having amnesia is not a good thing, obviously. So Isabella and his brother, but it's mostly Isabella, they now have a mission to not let anybody else realize what actually happened to him. So they brief him on like everybody in the mafia and their interpersonal relationships and like the business side of things. Obviously, Isabella doesn't know that part, but they have to work overtime to make sure that nobody else realizes that this man has amnesia. And because she wants to have a real marriage with her husband, she decides to not tell him that it seems like he doesn't like her. So she tells him that he is in love with her and that they have a great marriage. I do have to say, in the first part, since she was wearing him down, they did end up sleeping together. So that would have been more awkward if that happened in part 2, I guess. Like you're claiming to be, your husband is in love with you, yet you didn't even sleep together. So Luca from the beginning realizes that there's like something strange about their marriage. She's probably hiding something, but he decides to not really push too hard on that. And the second part is just all sex, really. Like the only thing these two do when they're in a scene together is fuck each other. So yeah, this was very spicy, and it was kind of a whiplash to read it after the first book, which has very little spice. I am very interested to see what she's going to do with the 5th book, because there's no way in hell that book could have more sex than this one. Like these people are kinky, especially him, and she just wants to please him in every way, shape, or form. So she goes along with everything he wants, and the things they do, I cannot even tell you without, like, I cannot even tell you. Like, anyway, I was struggling with this book. I gave it 3 stars. Okay, so for several reasons. One, the age gap. I knew obviously going in that this had an age gap. I knew it was a significant age gap. So there's levels to me buying this, I guess. So it's not that I'm opposed to age gaps in fiction, not even ones this big. But as I get older, like I believe if I had read this when I was closer to Isabella's age, I might have found it like hot, like a hot older Italian guy. Like, yes. But now I'm more close in age to Luca. So he's 35, I'm 32. The idea of finding a 19-year-old attractive just repulses me, okay? It's just not attractive. They are still children in my head. But okay, so I got on board with it eventually, obviously, because I want to read this book. What I couldn't get out of my head was that he knew her when she was 6. That it's just like, how like, why? I truly don't understand how you can fuck somebody when you knew them when they were 6 and you were already an adult. So anyway, like you were already older than she's now when you first met. Anyway, moving on. Which I believe, so I assume they met when she was 6, but I know that's probably not the case. That's not the reason why I gave this 3 stars. The reason I gave this 3 stars was I 100% preferred the first part over the second part. Like, I liked our dynamic in the first part. I liked how he was fighting it and how she was so like strong-willed and like the shenanigans she pulled. I was like, even though, yes, obviously I was opposed to the age gap, but I mean, she's the main character. She wanted him. Then I was rooting for her to have him, I guess. So I liked how she got under his skin. I like how she made him flustered in some ways. And I liked how she didn't listen to him and she knew what she wanted and boy, she got it. Okay. And that is all I have to say. In the second part, she completely changed. Like the girl we knew in the first part was nowhere to be found in part 2. And that annoyed me. And there was no reason for it, really. What? So you're telling me the only reason you had a personality was because he didn't want you, but now that he wants you, all of a sudden your personality is gone? That was not the same character, in my opinion. Also, yes, this book had a lot of sex, and you know what? I'm not a blushing virgin, okay? I don't mind sex in books, obviously, but this was just like too much. Like at one point, I wanted to skim these scenes because they added nothing to the story. Even though this is not a long book, it could have been shorter because it really didn't add a whole lot extra. Like I think she could have deleted 3 sex scenes and it wouldn't have changed anything to the plot. Also, his daughter bothered me. She was supposed to be 7, which, yes, that is 1 year older than when he first met his wife. Anyway, she didn't read like a 7-year-old to me at all. She read like a teenager. So I didn't, why not make her a teenager then? He's 35. He could have had a teenage daughter, right? Or at least like a preteen. 7 is not a preteen. So that kind of annoyed me too. And also what I feel, okay, so comparing it to the other 3 books, which I kind of forgot about book 2. It's not very clear in my mind. So I'm specifically talking about book 1 and book 3 here. What I really loved about those 2 books was the found family aspect of like the main characters and the side characters being their staff or people who also live in the house. I like that in the first and third book. Like in the third book, obviously you had like his previous handler, you had the dog. And in the first book, you had, what's her name? Vanya? And you had like the cook and his shenanigans. You had Kostya, who constantly was sleeping with people, which I guess Luca had a similar character, but he just didn't leap off the page as the other characters. And so there was no, even though it's called like La Familia, I don't know, it didn't feel to me like a real family. Like I didn't really connect to all these side characters, whereas I feel like she did a better job with the Russian mafia side of things. I really felt like the whole found family situation in those books. And I felt like that was missing in this one. Which it makes sense for the story, I guess, because obviously he has amnesia and they are trying to keep that from people. So it makes sense that they don't have people in their inner circle, I guess. But I mean, that made it a bit less enjoyable for me. One thing I forgot to mention is, okay, so I gave it 3 stars, right? And I do think I would have given it 3 stars anyway, but probably what also didn't help is that I read these books back to back. Because these 3 heroes that I read back to back, they do similar things and it's starting to annoy me a bit. So I think it's good that I'm taking a break from this series. And I don't know if I'll read more in this trip. Maybe I will, because the next book was set up perfectly in my opinion, and it does sound very good. But okay, so all of these heroes that I read, like the heroes, MMCs that I read back to back, they all had a fascination with ripping off the clothing of their FMCs. And when Luca did it, I was like, oh, again? Like, can you just remove her clothes normally, please? And obviously they're all touch her and I'll kill you. All of them didn't want people looking at their women. So they're like similar heroes in like a different form, I guess. Also, yeah, one thing I also wanted to say, what all bothered me about Isabella is, and like I said, I still really liked her in the first part. Like, she didn't do anything. Like, what did this girl actually do? Like, yes, she was obviously like, her whole thing was that she knew all the secrets about the familia, right, with her mom. But other than that, the only thing she did was go to the spa or go shopping or go to lunch with her sister, and that's it. Like in the first book, the reason I liked it so much is that the FMC had some real hobbies and a real job. Like she was an artist, of course, and I liked that. I liked how she had her own thing. Whereas I feel like Isabella, her thing was Luca, and that's like her personality trait is being obsessed with Luca. Also, I felt like these two, the only thing, like I was never really convinced of their romance. I was convinced that they were insanely attracted to each other. That was clear. But other than that, like she tried to explain why Luca liked her, but it wasn't convincing for me at all, especially since the Isabella he described was only the Isabella from part 1, who technically when he was, like when he still had his memory loss, he didn't know that part of her. So it felt disingenuous for him to describe her as such when I haven't seen anything. Like I haven't seen her be that way for the whole time that he's known her with his memory loss. So that I didn't buy that at all. And her, I truly don't understand why she was in love with him. Like, yes, obviously she was pining for him, but I've done my fair share of pining, okay? I've been there too a few times, but I can be honest here and tell you that the reason I was pining for these guys I've been pining over in my past was because they were hot, okay? And I'm sure if I had actually ended up in a relationship with them, I would have not been a happy camper. And even if we did have a real relationship, it's not just going to be the fact that they're hot that's going to keep me there. Like, they need to have other things about them, like in their personalities that I need to like, obviously. And I truly didn't understand. The author never really explained to me what it was about Luca that she liked so much, other than the fact that he saved her when she was 6 and that he was hot. So that also kind of bothered me. So I feel like we could have just removed some of those sex scenes and had them have, I don't know, a scene of them actually talking about real stuff. And not just either have sex on their dates or talk about the plan of saving, like deceiving people. Also, there was one thing that really bothered me, and it's kind of a spoiler, so I don't know if I should say. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna put a spoiler here, and if this spoiler tag leaves, then you're free to watch. Okay, so it's not a big spoiler, but it does spoil the inciting incident of the marriage, but it's not revealed until later on, but it's still all in part 1. So I'm gonna leave it up to you if you think that's a spoiler or not, but I'm gonna leave a spoiler tag anyway if you don't want to know anything. Okay, so I have this strange character flaw, I guess. I don't know if it's a flaw, but sometimes in books, whenever like a random side character gets killed or gets, usually when a random side character gets killed, when it's not their fault, it bothers me so much. So this usually happens in dark romances where the MMC will kill like a innocent guy that had sex with the FMC. Like, how is that his fault? Okay? And I know that's par for the course with these like touch her and I'll kill you kind of MMCs we'll find in dark romances. And I know a lot of readers love that and it's in books for a reason. I get that. I am the exception here. But I don't know, it bothers me so much. It's like this guy had nothing to do with this. He thought he was gonna have sex with this random girl. Why does he have to get killed for sleeping, for having a good night? He never treated her, but like I obviously can get on board if it's like a guy who was like an abuser or something, or abused the FMC or whatever, then I'm fine. I'm like, yes, kill him. But if it's like a rando who she decided to sleep with, and especially when she knows that the MMC already made a threat like that, it really bothers me when an author decides to kill off a random side character that did nothing wrong technically, right? So it kind of happened here too. The person that was killed, yes, he was wrong morally, but he didn't deserve to die for it. So we find out that it's the Don, so the grandfather. He's always known about her crush. And he paid off the bodyguard to sleep with Luca's ex. And his rationalization for that was, well, she was cheating on him anyway, but she was being discreet about it. Okay, so you're paying him, but you're also signing his death sentence because you know that he's gonna die for cheating with Luca's ex. So why would you do that? I really didn't understand why that had to happen. Like, and I was so fixated on that. I was like thinking in my mind, okay, so how could the Don have handled it better? Okay, and in my opinion, he could have had everything happen, but then offered this guy, like, have him film or pay somebody else to film them banging, and then give him some sort of witness protection. Because even though, yes, obviously he was having sex with a married woman, he didn't deserve to die for it. And also, what is he gonna do with his money now? He's dead. Okay, so anyway, I know I just went on a tangent about something that was so minuscule, but I don't know why that bothers me. It just does. So for my favorite book, I was really debating because these two are very close for me. But I was really debating between In Her Own League and Home Game, which is funny because I read them back to back. I feel like Home Game won by like the tiniest margin. So Home Game is my favorite book I read this month, but In Her Own League is a very, very, very close second. So I feel like I had a great reading month. I really enjoyed most of the books I read, and even the 3 stars, I did have a good time while reading them. So yeah, I had a good time. And this reminds me because I didn't really have a set TBR. And this just really reminds me that it's okay to mood read sometimes, or if I really want to find ways to mood read in the month. So hopefully I can do that in April as well. And I think I can because my TBR is not that big, although there are a lot of new releases coming out. So I say that, but I'm going to be prioritizing those, so we'll see. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were. I'd also really love to know what was your favorite book you read in the month of March. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.